Kings of War. Kings of War by Mantic Games has been around for about 10 years now. However, it's only really been in the latest 3rd edition of the game that we've seen the lore and background of the game begin to be fully rounded out. So for many people, you may not know just how rich this world of Panathor is. Before the time of the noble races, the world was created by the old gods, known as the primogenitors. These gods were fashioned from the very things of which existence is composed: life, death, darkness, light, earth, water, and air. These 7 gods between them created the earth as we know it, and no one can truly say how long the reign of these primogenitors lasted before BlackJack, the god of life, created the Elves, which was the beginning of their end. Though the Elves are thought to be the most ancient of the noble races, the Dwarves have the strongest impression of their creation. They believe that they were created from the tears of Dianek, goddess of the underworld. These tears gathered to form a stalagmite in the form of a dwarf, and the first of the kind was created. It was because of the Elves that Dianek was stricken with this grief in the first place. BlackJack, the bringer of life, had grown tired of his creations, the fish, the birds and the animals, being taken away from him by Shobik, the keeper of time. He therefore wished for a creation that could surprise him, one which could leave its own mark on the world. So he created the Elves. Fearful of Shobik stealing time away from his new creations, he hid them away for many years beneath the World Tree. Of course, he could not hide them forever, and when they were discovered by the other gods, there was much disagreement. In order to stop this quarrelling, BlackJack agreed to hastily create another race which Shobik would be able to control with his ravages of time, and so the creation of man began. Dianek, meanwhile, had remained silent in the underworld, untouched by the giving of life, the joy of light, and neither dark, wind or water made any difference to her subterranean realm. Seeing these elves and knowing she would never have children of her own, she began to cry. Seeing this sorrow, her fellow gods bestowed life upon these tears, giving birth to the dwarfs and giving them their sturdy vigour and longevity. Ironically, it was the rise of man which would be the undoing of the gods, as their awareness of their own mortality gave them drive to test the boundaries, to escape the clutches of death and live as gods themselves. By the time BlackJack and Shobik had realised their mistake, it was too late. They had set in motion events which would be their downfall. Each race had been created with magic in them, but the gods never realised that one day they may learn how to harness it themselves. The Elves, being the more advanced race, discovered this magic for themselves first. Early human mages were taught by the Elves, and the two noble races became ever more entwined. Though they lacked the lifespan of the Elves and Dwarfs, they made up for this with their discipline and focus, driven by fear of their mortal frames. The Elves came to admire this spirit, and it was from here that the first love affair between an elven mage and his human protege came about. It was also, however, the birth of necromancy. The knowledge that magic could halt or even reverse the ravages of time was known by the Elves, but they had no need to use it. They had no concept of loss, as they were near immortal creatures, but not so the humans. We enter the time of light, where a race known as the Celestians appear on Panathor. Little is known of their origins. Some say they come from a distant star, some say they came from a mirror dimension, with others believing they came from the future, due to the Elves' childlike meddling in powers they did not understand. However, their impact was clear. The Celestians were an advanced race, only too eager to share knowledge and wisdom with the Elves, and the reliance on the old gods all but faded. The Celestians were not content to only share a limited realm with the Elves, and so began to turn their attentions to the first humans and then the dwarfs. This was a time where each of the noble races, very briefly, put aside their differences and united in peace and prosperity, achieving more than at any time before or since. I could go on for hours talking about the shattering of the Fenulian mirror, the destruction of the Celestians, the God War, and of Oxan, father of lies, bringing forth the demons, soon to be known as the Abyssal Hordes, but I want you to discover the background for yourself. I haven't even touched on the rise of the undead, the trident realms of Neritica, or the orcs, goblins or ogres, to name but only a few of the races battling it out in Kings of War. This background that Mantic has created is far deeper than people realise, and with its expansion through Kings of War Vanguard, Kings of War Armada, and also through the upcoming Kings of War RPG, there is so much here to feast upon. The Kings of War 3rd edition rulebook is the best place to get started, and it is a glorious tome with more than 130 pages of background, bringing the world to life. Add to this the novels that have also been published by Winged Hussar, and you have a fantasy world beginning to grow which will satisfy even the most hardened Tolkien fans.
Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it, and if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month, and there is lots of different tiers and bonuses which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.